everybody. Welcome to Holy Foley, the world of performative film sound. I'm Dr. Vanessa Theme Ament, and today it's my honor to talk with Jim Katz, who in addition to being his many accomplishments, was the producer of Cats Don't Dance, which I'm really excited to talk about. But he also is the executive producer of the Carney Awards, which celebrates character actors. And we're going to talk about that. So I am really excited because I was as you know, the Foley, the supervising Foley editor, Foley artist, and I did the loop group. I supervised the loop group on Cats Don't Dance. But I'm really excited to introduce you to Jim Katz. Hi, Jim. Gosh, I'm so excited to talk with you.
And it's been a long time. Thanks for having me on your
Yes, it's been a
podcast.
minute. It's been a minute. And you are now down in Florida, and I'm back in California.
Yeah, well, things change, I never thought I would ever end up in Florida.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
But
You're originally from New York, right?
New York, left in 87, moved to California in 87 from New York and stayed there until 6 years ago.
And we
You know,
miss you. Well,
well,
I came back right before the pandemic. So I came back in 2019,
yeah,
and
that's when I
then
left.
the pandemic hit. When my endowed chair ended, I moved back here. And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah, well, yeah, again, prices rise.
Oh my gosh.
Tank of gas, $7. I mean, that's ludicrous. Plus, I hate to say it, but when you get a little older in Hollywood, they cast you aside for the
I
younger,
know.
and it's hard enough to get work in this business.
I know.
I had to claw my way in and fight my entire career. And then when you kind of get older, it's so much harder. I'm like, you know what? I just don't need to do this anymore. So I'm going to go do my own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Dave Stone and I, we back in 2004, um, when when we left LA that time, I did not really want to leave. I just finished my CD of music I'd written, and it was incredible and I loved it. And we were going to stay and really like promote my music because he was sort of tired of competing. He was like, this is just getting too hard. And he had his Oscar and he'd been doing all this great work and he loved it. But we saw the writing on the wall. And of course, he was older, so he saw it before me. But there is this insane addiction to thinking that younger is better instead of understanding the wisdom of people who've been around the block. And it never changes. It gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And it's in every sector in the United States. It's in every sector. I'm not so sure it's that way in every country. I don't hear it as badly from my friends in other countries. And I do talk to people all over the world. And I don't get the sense that it's that way everywhere, but it certainly is that way here.
Well, it is. And you know, it's not it's not just an economic thing, because I'm
No.
sure we'll talk about what happened at Cast Don't Dance. It had nothing to do with money. It was all politics. Um, so, a lot of times, especially for actors, unless you're Julia Roberts and George Clooney, you're out.
Yeah.
You're out. You get older, and they'll bring in the younger, Rachel Zegler, the up and coming girl who was a West Side Story, beautiful actress, great singer, and hired her for Snow White. And they took a lot of crap saying, she's a Latino girl, and Snow White was this pasty white girl. It's like, no, she was a perfect choice. You cut her hair, you put her in that dress. That is Snow White, but she couldn't keep her mouth shut and the politics got in the way and the movie tanked. So, it's not always younger is better, but it's tough in Hollywood. I'd say what I try to tell people is I say, remember we were kids growing up, we played musical chairs and you had 9 chairs and 10 people.
Right.
Okay. Hollywood, getting a job in Hollywood is having 1 chair and 100,000 people.
Throw a
That's
rock.
how hard it
Throw a
is.
rock and you'll hit them.
You got to create, people say, how do I do it? I say, you got to create your own work. That's the
Yeah.
only way you're going to do it. It's so hard to get into this business.
Very hard. And it's hard to
It
stay in it.
shouldn't be, but it is.
It is. It's very hard. And the interesting thing too, Jim, is those of us that are the creatives, and I've been a creative my entire life, and we are sensitive people. You cannot be creative without being really sensitive. And so the irony of it is that we get criticized for being sensitive, but you can't be creative without being sensitive. And yet we are treated so badly, and it's really hard on us. And I cry easily, but
Yeah.
we can't really have a thick skin, because if you have a thick skin, you can't let the creative muses in. So it's really a very difficult way to be in this world. And I don't drink, and I don't really do any sort of drugs except for the ones prescribed for my asthma or my migraines. And so, I have resorted to Buddhism and meditation. Um, and I, eat very carefully, being mostly vegan, but it's really hard. And it's it's an interesting way to try to live your life. And I've said this to you personally before, and I've said it to everybody that I know when we talk about you or Cats Don't Dance. When Dave and I talk about Cats Don't Dance, and we talked about it on our episodes that we did in anime because we were celebrating the idea of animation. We loved working with you because you were such a straight shooter and so easy to deal with because you were so direct. And I'm very direct, so I like direct. I grew up in a family that was direct, so I like direct. So I found it very easy to deal with you because you were just direct. And so direct is the language I understand. But that isn't always the case, not just in the industry, but anywhere really, because they operate out of fear a lot of the time. And that makes it really hard. And so I want to get to all of that. But before we get to the Cats Don't Dance story, because I think there's a lot to unpack here,
Yeah.
I am really excited to hear about the Carney Awards because I have always been a fan of character actors. And I was an Art Carney fan, but I'm a fan of all character actors, all of the
Well,
actors who aren't
yeah.
the pretty people who get cast, but the interesting people who go inside and do interesting work bringing it out. So I want to hear about that a little bit.
Okay. Basically, it goes back to the Twilight Zone when we were kids, and we all had one TV in the house growing up in the 60s. And if you remember, if you ever watched the Twilight Zone,
Oh yeah.
Jack Klugman, Burgess Meredith,
Uh-huh.
Jonathan Winters, William Shatner, young William Shatner, Elizabeth Montgomery, um,
Agnes Moorehead. Her
Agnes
episode
Moorehead.
was
So
amazing.
I remember my brother and I, he's 6 years younger, and we'd watch, and then Batman came along, and you had the actors were lining up: Burgess Meredith, Cesar Romero, Frank Gorshin, Julie Newmar, and Art Carney, who
Yeah.
played the Oscar. So go back about 25 years ago, my brother and I, we would always try to do something, and we said, let's do that character actor award show. And the first thing was like picking a name. And we said, nobody's going to watch the character actor awards. Nobody cares about that. So we wanted to find a pedigree. And we thought maybe Spencer Tracy is one of the greatest character actors of our time. We'll call him the
Yeah.
Tracy Awards. So, or M. Emmett Walsh, who we honored a few years back, great actor. We can call him the Emmys. And they were like, well, we wanted to be serious. We did want to compete with the Oscars and the Emmys. We wanted actors to be proud. And Art Carney's name came up, and it just rang, the Carney Awards.
Yeah.
So this is
It does.
before the early stages of internet, and I found his address in Connecticut. I created a one sheet and I sent it off, and that was it. It came back with a stamp from the post office saying refused, where apparently he said, "Oh, I'm not opening this," and he sent it back. And if we didn't get that envelope, I would have just assumed Art Carney got it, opened it, and said, I ain't doing this. That would have been the end of the Carney Awards. But the fact that it came back, I was pissed off. I called my brother, who was working at the agency of Don Buchwald and Associates, and they have a great voice department, as you know. And he goes, you won't believe it, but Art Carney's son is a voice over talent at this agency. So I said, well,
Wow.
get to know him. And he did. 3 months later, Brian Carney was pitching it to his father, And his father goes, "Do I have to do anything?" And Brian said, "No, Pop. Okay, make the deal." And that's how the Carney Awards was born. Just like that. I mean, it took years and years and years, but so
Yeah.
we did it, but then we had to put it together. And we created sizzle reels and went around to all the networks, and all they cared about was whether or not the A talent would show up. Because again, they felt there was no value in the character actors that you and I both love, which, they're the texture and the fabric to every movie and TV show ever made. You
Yeah.
can't have, you can't watch Tom Cruise by himself on the screen.
No.
You need supporting players, otherwise it won't work.
One of
Uh,
my favorite
so
ones is David Strathairn.
yeah, I
He's
mean,
one of my favorite character actors. I think everything he does is really interesting.
yeah, I
And he
mean, you
started
got
out in clown college, and I've actually incorporated that into my musical Holy Foley, where my main character starts out where in her past life went to clown college, and her muse was David Strathairn because I adore his work so much.
well, and I mean, again, and it's like throwing darts at a board there. Everyone you hit,
Yeah,
Stephen Tobolowsky, Bruce
right.
McGill, Dan Hedaya, they're all great actors. So my brother is business partners with Elvis Duran, the radio host, and they just said, "Screw it, let's do it ourselves." And we did it ourselves. We said, "All right, let's do it." And I created the ballots, and I got the accounting firm,
Wow.
and we're off to the races. And we
Yeah,
have a board. By the way, the voting board back then was only 12 people. Now we have over 100, because everyone wants to be part of this program.
yeah.
So then we got the winners, and we're like, great. And then we both realized, well, what happens if you throw a party and nobody shows up? The Carney, nobody ever heard of this. Who's going to show up to this? We had David Paymer, Bob Balaban, CCH
Yeah.
Pounder, and we were like, uh, no, I mean, what if they don't come? And it just so happened, I don't know if you remember the name, but this publicist, Richard Hoffman, used to work at Hanna-Barbera,
Uh,
and he was now CCH Pounder's publicist. And I called him up and I said, "Hey, Richard, how you doing? Listen, we have this award show, the Carney Awards, and CCH. We want to honor her." He's like, "Well, do you have any literature?" "No, we don't have any of that." He goes, "You have a website?" "No, we don't have that either." He goes, "Well, what do you have?" I said, "Yeah, we don't have anything." And this is a Friday, and he goes, "Well, I'll get back to you." And Monday morning, the phone rings. I see it's him. And I just knew, and I held the phone out here on speaker because I knew he was going to say, "Forget it." Anyway, he goes, "CCH would be honored to attend." I was like, "No, okay." And they all signed on, and we were off to the races. And
well,
and
this is a wonderful endeavor.
yeah, yeah. And Billy
You're
Crystal
doing something if
presented. I
this
mean,
is
we had A-list presenters. Harrison Ford, Joe Mantegna. They all,
because they really understand the importance and the
well, that's
craft of that kind of acting.
that's exactly right. They
They
all
do.
know the importance of these actors. That you
Yeah.
can't. Steve Buscemi, you
Yeah, I
don't get
love
any
him.
better than that.
I was going to mention him. I love him. So let's get to Capstone Dance because
Right?
I will start out by saying I was privileged and I will just talking about Natalie Cole. We can start there and then I want to hear what you have to say because you have insights that I was not
Yeah,
privy to. I was fortunate enough to be with her on the ADR stage where she came in and auditioned to do the reading to try to get the role of Sawyer. And Mark, for some reason, wanted Jasmine Guy, and I'm not going to argue with his choice, but I will tell you that because he's the director, and directors get to do what they want.
correct.
But I will tell you that she came in, and she came in to read for it, and she was an incredible class act, and she was the total professional. And she told us a story about how she'd actually been a telephone operator in one of her jobs when she was young. And she was an absolute delight. And I thoroughly enjoyed, I was working as the ADR editor for that. For some reason, I also did some ADR editing on that show. I can't remember why, but I did a lot of different things on that film. I think it was just because I happened to be there and I knew how, and I came in and filled in and did stuff. I don't know. I was doing some ADR editing at that point on that show. And she was a delight. And I thought, boy, I thought she did an excellent job. But Mark had it in his mind that he wanted Jasmine Guy. And I am not a Jasmine Guy fan. That's just me. I did not really love what she did in that role, but that's just taste and that's just a difference of opinion. He had in his mind that he wanted Jasmine Guy, and she was given, and Natalie was given the opportunity to come in because she was singing the role, to audition to act for the role. And I loved what she did, but Mark was the director and he gets to do what he wants.
I'm gonna correct you there. I mean, she was hired to play the character of Sawyer, and her singing, again, her father, in case people don't know, was
Sure.
an acting Cole, so you don't get any better than that. But it wasn't that she auditioned for the role of Sawyer for the voice; she played the role of Sawyer. And I remember she seemed, when it's funny, actors, they're great at acting, but if they try to do stand-up comedy, a lot of them can't do it.
Yeah.
Natalie doesn't get better at than singing than her, but maybe when she was forced to sit in front of a microphone and read from the script, she got maybe uptight. So what we did in the
Perhaps. I
control
don't know.
room, no, she did. I was there for everything.
Yeah.
We set her up in Hanna-Barbera's control room A, the studio A, if you recall that.
Yeah.
And we put her at a table with chairs and a desk lamp, and we made the mood very comfortable so she'd feel comfortable. We did everything we could. Now, in my opinion, and again, I'm not the director, I thought she was fine. That's
Yeah.
my Mark and David Kirshner, and I would not have been on that film without David Kirshner, who's believed in me from day one. So I owe him my career.
Yeah.
But they felt differently, and my job was then to go find the person that they wanted. And we had Nancy Giles come in first to do the voice so the animators can animate to it because we didn't want to hold up the process. And I think obviously it was finding a speaking voice as close to the singing voice because, take Jim Nabors, for instance, who played Gomer Pyle.
Yeah.
You could not have two polar opposites singing and
I
speaking
know.
voice. So that was like, but for what we needed someone who would sound similar. Same with the Darla character, was voiced by Ashley Peldon and Lindsay Ridgway,
Yeah.
singing. They were a much better match.
Yeah.
You could not tell the difference. I'd love to quickly tell that story if possible, if you guys want. I don't know if you're the Lindsay, when Darla Dimple,
I
you
thought
know,
that was a wonderful match. An
well, yeah, and
hysterical
Darla,
character.
Ashley Peldon, who was very 9 years old, I think at the time, came in, and Luana Jockman, who was our voice person, worked with her. I was in the room. She sat at the piano. I built a little boat, and Ashley, she could do it, but it wasn't the power we were looking for. And then I happened to be somewhere and I saw this very young girl, Lindsay Ridgway, singing. And I'm like, holy crap, listen to this. This girl, it's like a young Miley Cyrus who can belt out a tune. So I got a tape. I drove to Randy Newman's house in the Palisades. And he answers the door. I go, Randy, you got to listen to this for, the Darla singing boy. Okay, no, Randy, listen to it now. And he put it in and he goes, that's our Darla singing voice. And that was it. But with, Jasmine was, a terrific actress. I don't think the audience would have cared if Natalie Cole maybe didn't get it perfect for the speaking voice. But that's what the guys wanted to do.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
brought in Frank Welker, who played the agent, this fast talking
Yeah.
agent.
Well, Frank's great.
Yeah, to work with now because they had to go back and forth with negotiating, and you never bring in two actors working together on a film like that. You always bring them in separately to do the work. In her case, we brought in Frank, and we thought it might help. I thought it was fine, but again, those guys didn't want her, and we found Jasmine. If you listen to the film, not that anyone can listen to the movie anymore, unfortunately. I don't think you'll tell the difference. I think you'll go, oh, singing, speaking sounds the same to me, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think Mark and David got it right with picking Jasmine, you
Yeah.
know.
So I'm curious. So the thing that was really disappointing to me was when we were working on this film, it was so obvious that it was wonderful. And I was so disappointed. I mean, right in the middle of it, we started getting the word that it was not going to be promoted. There wasn't going to be a real cast and crew or a premiere or anything. And I'm just curious what
It
happened.
wasn't, I'm going to correct you there. It wasn't in the middle. It was closer to when we were in
Well,
post-production.
that's what I mean, in the middle of what we were doing in post,
Okay, right.
the middle of what
We're going along the
we're
way.
doing our work, we're doing our sound work, and all of a sudden it's like this isn't even going to go anywhere. And it was like, this is Turner feature animation, and all of a sudden it's not even going to be given any oxygen when we knew how good it was and we knew some of the politics of it, but it was kind of surprising because we knew how good it was.
Well, again, this is Hollywood. It has nothing to do with that. It all comes out of politics. So it started under the umbrella of Hanna-Barbera. Okay. Then Ted Turner bought Hanna-Barbera,
Right.
and Pagemaster was just coming out. I will put a pin in the thoughts of that. And Ted Turner, Pagemaster bombed at the box office. And I still remember the day after we're in a conference room and Ted Turner comes walking in and he goes, I liked it. And we're like, well, I guess that means we get to continue on Cats Don't Dance, which we did. The problem, what happened is that the guys working on Pagemaster, the crew, were going to leapfrog over Cats Don't Dance to the next film because, as you know, these things take 4 years to do.
Oh
There's a
yeah.
lot of development. So I was on Cats Don't Dance. You had Barry Weiss and David Steinberg on Pagemaster, right? So they were going to leapfrog to the next film. And I was on Cats Don't Dance with this girl, Ellen Heindel. I don't know if you ever heard that name, but she decided to leave. So then the next film beyond Cats Don't Dance wasn't coming. So Turner brought in Amy Pascal, and they decided to fire all of us. They were going to shut down, and that was the end of it. But serendipity steps in that day. Fox announced their movie animation division. It was in the front page of the Reporter. And Turner said, oh, we better keep going and compete with them. We were packing up, thinking about Severance. Really, I still remember. I was like, I made peace with myself. This film's never gonna go. We're done. And then just out of pure coincidence, so they said we better keep this going. So, we started with, I think it's Sandy Russell Garton. She was the original writer. And you know what happens when you get too many chefs in the kitchen. And I think that's what happened on Cats Don't Dance. We had too many writers, too many people trying to set the direction of the story. And Amy Pascal, who was a very sharp woman, was in
Oh
charge
yeah.
of the company before she went over to Columbia, Sony. And so what happened was David Kirshner and Dindal, and then they're all arguing over which way the story should go. And the artist said, well, you know what? Screw this. We're going to do our own story. And they started storyboarding their own version of Cats Don't Dance. So now we had two versions going. And I remember sitting in the conference room with David and Paul Gertz and Mark and Amy Pascal and whatever. And I'm sitting there going, please don't fall on me. Please don't fall on me. So David goes, hey, Jim, you know these artists pretty well. What do you think? I said, I think you people are the dumbest people I've ever met. You people are so stupid. I said, you can't decide and be on the same page of the story you want to tell. So the artists are going their own direction. If you pick the way you want to go and be united, trust me, the artists are going to fall in line with you. And that's exactly what they had to do. So it got murky, the story, and then they had to bring in Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski to work on it, and those guys, as you know, are top-notch. People versus O.J. Simpson, People versus Larry Flint, Problem
Yeah,
Child,
yeah.
top writers. But there were so many writers that, in my opinion, the thing started to get confusing. And I didn't think the story was, working in the direction you needed it to work. I still think it came out okay, but I don't think it was nearly as good as it could have been. Because again, so many hands in the pot, and then Randy Newman leaving, before he could score it, he got pissed off and he left. So,
So then
and
Steve Goldstein ends up scoring.
I'm sorry.
Then Steve Goldstein ends up doing the.
Steve Goldstein came in, but if you want to hear the Randy story real quick, what happened is, and I knew Randy. I used to go to his house when he'd be writing, and we had the basketball game on, and he's composing at the same time. It's like, and he had two pianos, and I was playing on one, he's playing on the other. It was a lot of fun. Randy, yeah, again, when you write a song like "Tell Me Lies," it's unreal that
Yeah.
someone could do that.
Great
What
song.
happened is you
That's why
get,
we featured it each time in our episodes before
yeah.
you, because it is the fact that it got overlooked and did not get even not a nomination, it's
Yeah.
just criminal
Well,
because it is
it
a
shows you
great song.
Oscars are bought. They're paid for. You know that. So what happened is Randy, you don't, again, the term suits it was developed for a reason. Randy faxed over the lyrics to one of the songs, and one of the suits, I'm not going to mention his name, came over from Disney, won't mention his name. He saw the lyrics and he changed a couple of the words, and I'm like, you don't do that.
No,
And even not only that, but okay,
no.
he faxed it back within 60 seconds. A fax came back. Go F yourself from Randy. He was done out. So obviously, it's my job to find another composer. We met with Mark Shaman. Everyone said we met with David Newman, Randy's cousin, and they all said we're not stepping on Randy's toes here. We're not doing that.
Yeah,
And Steve Goldstein, who was up and coming, very delightful, very talented, and he came in, and I thought he did a terrific job. I
yeah.
mean, but you being in post, you guys did sound effects, right? I know David Stone did all this, sound effects and
Oh
all that.
yeah, yeah.
I forget the name, Mark Mangini.
Mangini,
Yeah.
Mangini.
So they all did it. The problem was they were so good, the sound effects, that our editor, when he put together the rough
Yeah,
cut,
Dan Molina.
the music level was here and the sound effects were here. And I said, Danny, we have a beautiful score. Yeah, sound effects are important, like the Three Stooges when they collect it, but you gotta hear the music. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. They finally mixed it properly. And then we went to Universal Steve Maslow or someone. I forget those
Yeah,
guys.
and Greg Landecker, who are
Yeah.
great. They are like
Those
excellent.
guys work magic and they mixed it properly.
They were
But
beautiful.
yeah, I mean, and again, you had, in my opinion, the elements to make it a really, really good film. Now, the reason it didn't get distributed is exactly why. Um, Malone, I forget his first name, who hated Ted Turner. He controlled Warner Brothers, so Warner Brothers acquired Turner
Right,
Feature
right.
Animation, okay, which was the death of us. So we're in the editing room. Max Howard, who was kind of like the exec in charge, I guess, of Warner Brothers Animation, when they were doing Quest for Camelot over there. That's what they put their focus in. He came over. We're in the editing room, and he said, and I quote, "We're going to release your film, but we're not going to promote it. It's going to die in 2 weeks." And he walked out. And we're like,
Who was this?
Max Howard, Warner Brothers. And I'm like, I know the cost.
That's
The
what I
movie.
kind of remembered. I kind of remembered somewhere. I remember Dave telling me, because of course I would hear everything from him, and he might have heard it from you, or he might have heard it from Dan Molina or someone, but we got in post the word, they're gonna kill it. They're gonna
Yep,
kill it. They're gonna make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And we
that's it.
just went, Why would you do that when you can make money on this? Because of, first off, Scott Bio was so great and did such a great job singing and scatting, and he was so charming.
Oh, Scott Bakula.
Bakula, he was so great, and the songs were so great, and the story was so charming, and it was so delightful, and it was such a love letter to LA and the 30s and the 40s, 1939, and it was so charming, and the songs are so great. And I thought, why would you shoot yourself in the foot like this?
Well, again, it's politics. The film,
Yeah.
we had a budget of 45 million. We brought it in, or I brought it in for 43. We saved $2 million, but they were willing to piss that away. And I remember saying to David Kirshner and Paul, I'm like, help me out here, but at least put a little bit behind it, get your money back. I mean, we won the Annie Award, which is
Yeah.
back there behind me, because again, they saw the merit in it, and it let the wind out of our sails. We 4 years of our life on this thing, and the talent, and to just say, yeah, we're not going to help you out here. And then the ironic thing is, Quest for Camelot didn't do anything anyway. That died too in the box office. So, again, this is as
And the thing
Michael.
is, you had some amazing people. What's really idiotic is you had amazing people who started their careers on this film and then went off to do amazing things like Cinco Paul and Mark. And you had
Yeah.
people who just launched on this film and then went off and did great things.
I mean, we had a lot. They've all gone on. A lot of them start in the board department, because those are where you learn how to tell the story and draw. And if you can do that, you can direct, basically. So, but they, a lot of them went on to work, and we could have kept this company going, and we could have developed in-house. Again, keep in mind, we were, with Hanna-Barbera, and they had what they called the shorts program. And they were all different, and that's where Family Guy came out of. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine we could have done a feature version of Family Guy. We had so much material to pick from, and politics gets in the way. And that's one of the reasons I left. It's like, I don't play well with politics in anything,
It's
but
hard. It's really hard. I don't like it, and it hurts. It just like hurts my soul because it's
it's
about
a
the
good
work.
film.
It's
It's a
about
good
the
film,
work.
and they screwed it up,
Yeah. And
for no reason.
one of the reasons that I got excited was I thought, Turner, Turner Classic Movies now owns all of this. And having been on Turner Classic Movies and having worked doing that whole musicals open course, and having been on it with Ben Mankiewicz and they have the library, I thought there might be a way to get people interested in this film again, because now very different people are in charge, and very different people are in charge of Time Warner and HBO and Max, and the conglomerations are so different now. And I thought the 30-year comes up in a year and a half. And so I kind of have a mission, because it never got seen and the songs never really got heard. And so I thought, well, I think, Jim, we should try to wake people up to this little gem of all of the talent that's in this film and the great songs. And we haven't even mentioned Gene Kelly, who consulted on the last thing he ever was involved with was consulting on the way the dancing should be on this. And the last thing he ever worked on was consulting the way
Yeah.
the dancing should be on this. And, Gene Kelly, Foley did the Foley sound, the Foley work, the Foley taps, and the Foley dance sounds for his own films. And so for me to have done the dance Foley on a film that he would have consulted on how you do the dance and animate it, to get the style for that period, and then be the person who danced the Foley for it, was really an honor for me, because I knew when I was working on it that he had been the one consulting on how you choreograph, what the dance style should be, and consulted on it so that the animators would know how to, and that it was real cell animation too. It wasn't computerized. That's another thing.
No, correct. It was all hand-drawn
It was
animation.
hand animation. So
Right.
there's so much about this film. It's celebrating old Hollywood. It's it's a metaphor of the people who are overlooked, those who are overlooked in Hollywood, and using animals as the symbol.
It's
And
perfect with the DEI going on now.
I know
We can do that comparison.
the songs are some of the best songs, and Randy wrote, in my opinion, his best song ever in this film, sung by one of the best songstresses ever. And I wish she were still here.
Yeah,
And
it's
and some people, Mark did some great work afterwards. Cinco Paul was involved with it, and my God, Schmigadoon and Schmigacago. I mean, oh my God.
yeah.
And and then it was a wonderful experience. Gene Kelly was involved, and it's like it needs to come, it needs to be known, it needs to be celebrated. And so when I was thinking about it, when we were working on a Goofy movie with Kevin Lima, who was a delight, and we loved working on Goofy movie, and we started celebrating the 30th anniversary because Disney's way behind celebrating the 30th anniversary of Goofy movie because it's such a great movie. And this is equally wonderful. And I thought, we were lucky enough, Dave and I were lucky enough to do both films. We were lucky enough to do both films. And I thought, this needs to come back out. This needs to be brought to light. And I'm going to talk to Jim because
Yeah.
we
Um,
need to. So I really believe in this film. I really do. Because when I look at the story, which is delightful, the talent in it, you have character actors in it. You have Don Knotts, you have Hal
Holbrook.
Holbrook,
Well, we had Kathy Najimy, who, from Sister
Jimmy, and you also had um God,
Eddie
Ed
Pierce.
Asner.
Ed Asner. Yeah. Well, no, Ed Asner was fired and
Oh,
replaced by George Kennedy.
or George Kennedy. And you had and then you had Natalie Cole.
Yeah.
You have
Well,
you have I mean
we
you
had,
have the talent in it is astounding.
well, again, that's what I said. The talent,
And
unfortunately,
then
had nothing
wonderful
to do with it.
sound, wonderful music, and cell animation, actually hand-drawn animation.
Yeah.
And then this wonderful young girl doing Darla Dimple.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece in some ways. And
Ashley Sheldon.
and it's so delightful that I feel like it's worth putting energy into. And I thought, well, I still have some people there. And I thought, well, I'm going to start doing my own mission of just trying to get people to look at this film because it's available on Tubi or Newbie or whatever.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Well, that should tell you something. Who owns that channel?
I don't know.
Well, that's a good place to start.
This is a fascinating story about Cats Don't Dance. And I want everybody to really understand why we did 2 episodes of the animation with Dave Stone, who provided some clips and B-roll and stories about it because this is one of his favorite projects. We loved working on it. We loved working with Mark. We loved working with you. We loved working with Dan Molina. We thought the songs in it were just fantastic. And we were so disappointed that it got the kibosh. And we want everyone to go look for it because on Tubi or Newbie or whatever it is, because we love it. And I own it because I think it's wonderful. So I want to thank you, Jim, and I want everybody to be aware of the Carney Awards as well because character actors rock.
CarneyAwards.com. Check it out. So,
Yes, yes. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been wonderful. It's so good to see you.
oh, we're glad
We're
to
going to
do
stay
it.
in touch.
So, yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.